My buddy Kevin Giffen absolutely was obsessed with Ryan Gosling and was like stalking everything on Twitter trying to find all the information of like where Ryan Gosling was. And I was on my way to a speech tournament that we were hosting. I went to the coffee shop Banu across the street from my house. I was wearing some maroon chino khaki pants, and Ryan Gosling was in the coffee shop, and he told me that I had nice pants. So
Gosling told you had nice
pretty
pants?
pretty much a fashion icon.
He basically invited you into his Mojo Dojo Casa house.
I am a kin now.
We're rolling in the minivan. We're rolling in the minivan. Rolling in the minivan.
Yo,
Rolling in
minivan
the
movie lovers, welcome back to the minivan. As always, I am joined by the bearded wonder,
Nick Wiggum.
and I am your mustache maestro, Brett Gray. And it's been a summer of at-home movie marathons that we've been hosting. So many good summer blockbusters. And while we've been talking to you each and every week about the movie on the mini, Nick, tell them what the movie on the mini is.
The movie on the mini is your opportunity to get a gift card to see a movie on us for just clicking that like button and subscribing to our YouTube channel.
All you got to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can sit on us and watch a movie.
You can sit
Movies
right
on
on
us.
Yep. And it will be the first 100 are entered automatically. You don't have to do anything special besides subscribe to the Minivan Movie Club YouTube channel, and you're entered.
Subscribe, you're entered. That's a free chance to get $25 gift card to Fandango. Go watch whatever movie you want to watch. And speaking of movies that are worth watching and summer blockbusters, I think it's worth noting that we have reached the pinnacle of cinema when memes become blockbuster and Hollywood gold. We've just reached Barbenheimer weekend. You notice our customary purple has been exchanged for some hot pink. Nick is wearing his pinkest shirt, as am I wearing mine. And it's time to talk about Barbenheimer. What were your
Barbenheimer.
thoughts on the spectacle?
I think that this is awesome. I think that it's, as a combination, these movies pair so well together that you get something that's so lighthearted as Barbie and something that is so awe-inspiring, it takes your breath away as Oppenheimer, and one weekend where you can pair these two movies together, and clearly everyone is doing it.
Yeah, it's one of the first times in a long time where I feel like everybody's watching movies. You and I, we watch movies no matter what.
Yeah.
We'll go watch bad movies. We'll pay to go watch bad movies.
We have.
And we know this is not going to be that great, but it'll be something fun to do. We're kind of cinephiles. And there's a lot of people out there that don't really care. They look at Hollywood and think, I don't want to be a part of that, or I don't need to go to see a movie. I don't want to spend the money. I'll just wait till it gets out on Netflix or Max. I think the numbers here are staggering. Listen to this. $311 million domestic opening. That's the number one weekend for 2023. It's the first time ever that two movies have opened at more than $80 million for their domestic opening. And it's the fourth biggest opening weekend behind only Avengers Infinity War, Endgame, and Star Wars The Force Awakens. It was a spectacle.
Yeah, and I think we've seen the memes mislead studios before, right? We had It's Morbin time with Morbius. It got Sony excited. They re-released their movie in theaters to nobody going to see it. I think that schools that study marketing, when you look at this film, the way that Barbie was marketed, I think was absolutely perfect.
Yep.
And I still see people posting on Facebook 2 weeks later in all pink with a group of friends going to see the Barbie movie. It became a cultural thing that kind of transcended its own movie.
And I was at H-E-B, the local grocery store, shopping with my daughter, and there was Barbie cakes in the refrigerated section. I did not realize it had reached that level. Yeah. When you and I were planning on going to see it, I figured, it'd be kind of funny. We're going to go see Oppenheimer. Why not tag along and see Barbie? It's the weekend. Let's make it fun. And I would say that the theater for Barbie had a buzz.
Oh yeah, it was packed.
Everybody was in their seats well before the credits or the preview started. Everybody's in like a costume. They're ready. So many groups of people that went together, and there was an electricity about the theater that I haven't felt in quite some time. I can't think I've felt that electricity since really Infinity War.
Yeah, probably Infinity War Endgame going to see something built up like that.
Do you think that with the success of these like marketing here, that you'll start to see more movies? Maybe in the past you like shy away, you want to dominate a weekend. Do you think you'll see more studios maybe try to pair their movies together with maybe smaller studios that they own? Or what,
I mean, I
think
they're gonna try to replicate this definitely. But as you pointed out, when you're looking at those numbers, it's often not that successful.
No.
These are the first two to ever both make 80 million. I think it's just you pair a director in Christopher Nolan, who is clearly one of the best directors alive and working right now, with an IP that's as beloved as Barbie,
Yep.
and you kind of get this like mash together. It's going to be hard to find those two perfect kind of scenarios again where it just really works well.
Yeah. And surprisingly, and we're going to get into our analysis of the two films, something that I was really surprised by is actually how interesting the two movies are as a like its own like film festival.
Yeah.
They actually tackle a lot of the similar thematic ideas, and even though they're totally different movies, visually there is not much similar about them. There actually is a lot under the surface that leaves a lot to make the brain think. So let's hop into the first movie. We're going to talk about Barbie. Now, to be clear, I want to caveat this. I'm a dude. I'm
We're
married to a
dudes.
woman. I'm raising two girls. So on a certain level, I do connect with this movie.
I have a female dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm also not the target audience for this movie. So there are probably some things that I didn't pick up on that were there for audience members. But I do want to acknowledge some amazing statistics specific to Barbie in comparison to the Barbenheimer weekend. $162 million opening weekend domestically. That's number 3 so far this year. Worldwide, it's made $780 million. And that was all off of a $145 million budget.
Good job.
Safe to say that Barbie is still making racks on racks on racks.
Yeah, they probably spent another 150 in marketing because they pushed it hard since February.
Yeah.
But clearly, it's worked with just merchandise sales and ticket sales.
Just ticket sales, they've made the money back.
They-
But to think of all the other things, I mean, grocery stores being able to sell cakes. All the people that did parties before they went and saw the movie. I saw my 5th grade teacher on Facebook. She's like 65, and she posted that she had all of her like old teacher buddies together at their house, and they had a Barbie party. So this movie connected with so many people beyond just like us being like, "Hey, let's go see it. It'll be fun," because it's like a meme. But I think that we got to give a lot of credit to Greta Gerwig and her as the director, partnering with Noah and Margot as writers. This movie was, to me, I thought it'd be kind of a fun toy movie, just brand based off all the trailers I had seen. But all on the surface, it's just a journey movie about, some person finding their legacy, stereotypical Barbie becoming, who she is and battling with her legacy. It's also very simply just a movie about going from place to place. And it's both a really fun movie, and for the people that want to go deeper, a movie about a plastic doll is actually not as superficial as one might think.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the movie?
Well, I think on the surface level, I really enjoyed it. I think it's a funny movie. It made me and Brett busted out laughing several times in the theater watching it. We were probably actually one of the fewer people that I actually heard laughing, but I thought it was very funny.
We had great seats. We're right in the middle
Yeah.
of the theater, on a row full of women,
Yeah.
and then there's us two dudes sitting there next to each other, just cackling at so much humor.
I think Ken was awesome. Ryan Gosling absolutely killed it. The way that they wrote that character was so funny. There's so much depth to it. I do think that some of the overall deeper message is maybe a little muddled by the end of the movie, just with them trying to tie it all together and have a unifying theme. But it's a fun movie.
It's very fun. I was really struck in that opening sequence when they start in the beginning of Cavemen and the girls with the little baby dolls. I couldn't help but think of my own grandmother, who Like
lived in a cave.
That's all she had was a cave. No.
Yeah.
She talks about how she had baby dolls and she loved baby dolls, but she wanted other toys. Like she played with her brother's G.I. Joes because like they were like a different form of play.
Yeah.
So I immediately resonated with this idea that this movie was made for women. And, you know, I'm not trying to go all like, you know, bra burning feminist here, but it is cool if you're a woman sitting in the theater knowing this is a movie that was made for me and it's a good movie. It's not like some watered down rom-com that is, hey, let's just appeal to the female. Like this was designed with the female person in mind, and I think it was really, really effective. So many Easter eggs to like the toy, but also like across multi-generations of people that have interactions with Barbie. My interaction with Barbie is as a brother to somebody that loved Barbies, but then also now as a father. I have set up a Barbie dream house for Christmas. I set up all the furniture. I set up all the toys. I got all the pieces together. And watching the movie, I was like, that's a Barbie dream house.
Yeah.
That is that. That's the accessories. I clean them up all the time. I'm always telling my daughter, pick these up. Weird Barbie. I was like, oh, we've had to throw away a couple weird Barbies.
Everybody's seen a weird Barbie, that's for sure.
So I just thought, like my like knee-jerk response was, that was so much better than I thought it was going to be, and it was just really well done.
The only unrealistic thing about the movie is there was no just like tons of naked Barbie.
Yeah, where was naked Barbie?
Because a lot
wait,
of
are you saying you want to see the naked Barbie movie?
What I'm saying
is if you do, you can go
most
to
of the kids I've seen that have Barbie, for whatever reason, they have no clothes and they have no hair. So that was missing from the pantheon of Barbies.
What did you think of like Margot Robbie's performance as stereotypical Barbie?
I thought it was solid. I mean, I think Margot is a great actress.
She looks like Barbie to me.
She looks like Barbie. She probably looks more like Barbie than any human. I think that from a perspective of like women, Barbie does raise a lot of like body image concerns and all those things. And if there's a person that looks like a Barbie more than anybody, it's probably Margot, which is like the most unattainable, manageable look. So
I think for her, she's clearly, this is a very smart like career move for her to have purchased the movie rights, to have written, produced, and starred in this. I think she's now moved into that like solid A-list. It's hard to think she's been around for more than 10 years.
Well, she's worked with Quentin. She's worked with so many she's Wolf of Wall Street. I mean, she's been up there as a leading woman.
I think this like cements her. I mean, you saw someone like Jennifer Lawrence. It looked like she was going to be like the Hollywood it girl, and then she's kind of taking some steps back. I feel like Margot Robbie, when she was doing the dance sequence, I was like, Marvel cannot afford her.
No.
She's too expensive now. She is like, she's the billable name now, and I thought that was good. What did you think about like her performance and that in comparison to some other things you've seen her in?
I feel like this is kind of her at her like most comfortable. I feel like she gets to do everything. She gets a little dance. She gets a little sing. She gets some comedy relief. She has good comedic timing, and it translates. And she has charisma. She has on-screen likability. You enjoy watching her, and that translates. What did you think of Ryan Gosling's Ken?
I think it was Ken enough.
It was Ken enough?
Ken enough. No, I think that Ryan Gosling is like the perfect cast because he is the everything man. Fun fact, I actually have my claim to like everyone meets a celebrity. I have met Ryan Gosling.
Oh.
I met him one time in Austin when I was in school there. I was at a coffee shop. He was filming, I don't know, it wasn't Drive. It was the Lost Pines.
Lost Pines, yeah.
He was filming the Lost Pines, and my buddy, I'll give a shout out to Kevin Giffen. Hey, Kev, if you're watching this is a shout out for you. My buddy Kevin Giffen absolutely was obsessed with Ryan Gosling and was like stalking everything on Twitter trying to find all the information of like where Ryan Gosling was. And I was on my way to a speech tournament that we were hosting. I went to the coffee shop Banu across the street from my house. I was wearing some maroon chino khaki pants, and Ryan Gosling was in the coffee shop, and he told me that I had nice pants. So
Gosling told you had nice
pants? Pretty much a fashion icon.
He basically invited you into his Mojo Dojo Casa house.
I am a Ken now.
Yeah.
I am a Ken, and I think it's just such a smart casting by Greta and their team because Ryan is everything to everyone. Like, women love him, men love him. Like, he's universally liked. He has been Noah in The Notebook. He has been this awesome dude in Drive. He's been in so many movies where you're like, oh, yeah, he's awesome. I love him. He's cool. And the comedy that he was written was really good. I will say this. I think that Margot was a perfect Barbie. I think Ryan Gosling is a perfect Ken. I think that the way that they wrote the characters, and again, this may just me being a man, I think that they wrote the characters really, really well, and I think that sometimes they gave Ken the bigger jokes. Again, I'm a guy, so I might resonate with that, but part of Barbie's character being stereotypical Barbie means that she's going to be a little more vanilla in the way that she responds to things. Like, I think it's hilarious. She doesn't care about him at all.
No,
there is her character is like, oh yeah, cool. Like, she's not mean to him.
She's
or
like, why would you
disregarding him?
But
like, yeah, I don't. It's like just this like a stranger. Like, I'm not gonna be mean to him. It was phenomenal. This is the way I kind of think of Margot Robbie though. You sent me a TikTok of Margot, and like it cuts between her doing Harley Quinn, which is probably her like most famous character, and then this like running, dancing, smiling, waving, and it's like the same, just with different makeup. This is my thought. I think Margot Robbie is like Matt Damon.
Okay.
Like, really good at picking what is in their lane. Like, Matt Damon is a great actor.
Yeah.
And Margot Robbie is a great actress. But they're people and themselves, they know how to pick the right movies that shine their talents. So, like, every time you see them, you're like, they're really good. Yeah. That's a good movie selection. So, I was just thinking about, I think that Margot Robbie is Matt Damon. Whereas, like, Ryan Gosling, I feel like he's a chameleon. He can do anything he wants.
Yeah, I think that if you go to this movie with an open mind, you're going to have a good time. Yep. That's how I feel about it.
Was there anything on, like, the more negative side where, like, you didn't love it or you thought that it could grow?
I just think, like, the resolution wasn't really 100% there for me. Like, I know that America Ferrera gives her big speech at the end, which is, you know, but the kind of like basically the Kens are like pushed back down again. There's not like a equality message at the end, which I feel like they definitely could have like hit and it would have been a real win. It's more of like, well, when they get the real world figured out, we'll get this world figured out. And then Barbie's kind of like overall resolution, it just kind of felt like a little bit like kind of forced in.
Yeah. I liked the idea of bringing Ruth Hader back. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm not a Barbie fan. But I liked the idea of her having a conversation. I was kind of weirded out, like, so is she a real person, or like, what happened here, and what maybe that wasn't clear. I really felt like the weakest parts of this movie were when we were in Los Angeles, in the state of California, or in the country of California, in the state of Los Angeles. The weaker parts of the movie. I did think that Will Ferrell was funny. I enjoyed the ability that Mattel was able to produce a movie that makes them kind of not the bad guy, but like stupid and inept, and that shows a lot of like courage, I think. So good, kudos on them. The one, like, this is a stupid beef I have with the movie. One like actual beef I had was they went out of their way to show like diversity across all the Barbies, the Kens, and even Alan. One thing I thought was stupid is body positivity is a big thing right now, and they only had like one fat Barbie. Like,
there should have been way more fat.
If you're gonna, I just think if you're gonna show me like, oh yeah, look, it just feels like tokenization. Like, there's several different ethnicities of Barbies shown throughout here because diversity is good. But if you want to like show me like, oh yeah, we're body positive, like you can't have one token fat Barbie. Like, you can't do that. Like,
no, I got you.
There's got to be more than that. I just thought that was kind of like, whatever. And again, I'm a dude, so.
I'm a dude.
But all in all, I think in general, there's a lot to be had here. When you think about like our movie criteria that we look at, we talk each week about story, directorial vision, the production value, making sure that we're talking about like great iconic moments, the timelessness of a movie, and the personal likability. What do you think stood out to you about this movie specifically?
I think the production value is maximized. I think Greta and crew did an excellent job from the set pieces to the way that they use the camera, to the way that the actors use their bodies, the way it all blends together fits so well for the toy world and the toy movie, and it fits the theme of like.
It feels like you're watching.
It feels
a toy.
like you're watching a toys movie, but it's fun. It's fun
without being a kids movie. Like it doesn't. I would also. This is not a kids movie to me. I'm not taking a kid that's younger than like 13 minimum. And if I don't want to have a conversation with a 13-year-old,
about some of the things.
If my daughter was 13, I wouldn't want to talk to her about some of these things. I'd leave that up to her mother. But it's a great movie. I thought that the story at times was phenomenal, and other times like it's kind of it is what it is. So there's some great writing, but there's also some very like lackluster story arcs. But like the directorial vision, the production value, I give like 10 out of 10 to those areas, just because I felt like I was in a Barbie dream house, in a Barbie world, and I just felt like I was a Barbie girl.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think from a timelessness standpoint, obviously what Barbenheimer has meant to this year, with the money that it's made, I think it's going to be kind of one of those timeless staples. Obviously, Barbie's so big and been around forever.
Yep.
So I think that it fits that category well.
See, I think there will be some people that will remember, like, I remember going to the theater with my friends, and we were so excited, and it was my favorite toy, or we just had so much fun.
Yeah.
And, like, for me, I think of, like, great moments. There's so many great jokes that you can rewatch over and over again. And for me, the I'm Just Ken song and battle, the moments where they recreate some of the moments from like Grease. There's so many awesome moments just in that like song alone. And I can't help but think that this is going to be like the Halloween costume you're going to see.
Oh yes, this is going to be
Cowboy Barbie, Cowboy Ken,
full of Barbie. I said that to him as soon as we got out of the theater. I was like, we already know what the #1 costume. It was like when everybody watched Squid Games.
We should do like a travel show in like College Station or in Austin, and just go to some like bars and just count how many like movie inspired costumes there are, because I think that's kind of a measure. Like, where did you hit culturally? Did you have a moment? Because if you've got Halloween costumes that people are recreating themselves, you pass the culture timelessness check.
It's like when I was in college, Breaking Bad was out, and we went out to Northgate and College Station, and that's what Jesse and Heisenberg were everywhere. We had people in like radioactive meth lab suits in every style. So I think that's what this is going to be. You're going to have those Ken jumpers. You're going to have the cowboy version. You're going to have pretty much every Dojo Mojo Ken with a bandana and a fur coat. You're going to see it all this year.
And it'll be interesting too to see what type of like actual like there's going to be a Margot Robbie Barbie that gets released. There's going to be all kinds of Kens that get released based off of Ryan Gosling and Ben Kingsley Adir's character. Like, there's so many actual things that they're going to continue to make money, and they're going to make more movies because of the success that this has had. Maybe they'd go in a different route, but before we get to your rating, what movie do you think this is like taking some inspiration from, or do you think this reminds you of any other movies?
Well, I mean, I think you get a lot of the toy movies of like what is that relationship. So you get like the Toy Story of like the adult, the kid moving on when she first gets there and finds out the kid doesn't want to play with her anymore, and like that kind of passing on of the doll it goes up to the mom because the mom starts using it again. But you have those same kind of themes of like, what is my purpose as Barbie?
Yep.
Which obviously is something that resonates. I think the movie that they reference in the beginning is like Space Odyssey.
Yep. And
with that, so you have, there's clearly some like tracking themes with what they were going for.
Yeah, so I thought this as I was watching it. I really thought of like the Lego Movie, obviously because of like a toy IP. But like it kind of creates its own little world, and you're kind of bouncing between the real world and the another world, and the antagonist is also Will Ferrell. But then also I thought of something like the Wizard of Oz, where you're in this magical kind of community, and it is almost like an allegory for things that are happening in the real world, where we get to follow Dorothy as she explores this world, whereas like here it's flipped, where we see Barbie go explore the real world, and we get to see behind the curtain and see the wizard. But then I also thought of like, this is relevant. I thought this before it happened, but I thought of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, R.I.P. Paul Rubens. But it kind of feels like an adventure. We're going on this fun, quirky adventure where we're going to do goofy things, or we have song and dance numbers, like Grease, that is clearly an inspiration. And then also, I thought this, but then I was reading that Greta Gerwig talked to the writer and director of The Truman Show immediately before shooting this movie, and felt like there was a lot of inspiration in the way that she shot the movie. But there kind of feels like some weird commentary about like life and legacy in this movie because of the way that Barbie obviously handles it, the way that Ruth talks about it, and even the way that Ken has to deal with his own personal indifferences. Like, what does it mean to be Barbie? What does it mean to be Ken? And how do you deal with a legacy that is so, complicated? Because America Ferrera's character loved Barbie, but the daughter hated her. And there's so many different connotations to that legacy. What does it mean? And I don't think that there's any like clear resolution. And maybe that's on purpose. That's by design. Is your legacy is what you make of it. And it's not about that. It's about living. I don't know. I'm not trying to be philosophical on it, but I thought those are some movies that really stood out to me as like cross references.
I do worry for like Mattel and Hasbro that they're going to see like the success of Barbie, and think that that's going to be easily duplicated. And I do kind of worry that some of the things that are being greenlit as movies, unless they just have a really strong script and a good marketing drive, how those movies will succeed well.
Yeah, I think it would be a mistake to say that this movie was successful because it's Barbie IP. I think it's a decent movie. Like,
no, but I think
it's a
it
good.
definitely
I'm
links
saying,
to it.
I'm saying,
success,
it does,
but it's not the only driving factor.
So we know Mattel wants to make a Magic 8-Ball movie, a Polly Pocket movie, and a Hot Wheels movie. Those are like the next ones on their list.
Yeah.
So to assume that a Hot Wheels movie is going to be successful just because it's a Hot Wheels movie is indifferent to this actually being a well-crafted movie. Like, we're talking about this movie, and we're talking about themes that have nothing to do with the Barbie doll toy.
No.
So I think that there is a slippery slope of, hey, toy movies, just like comic book movies. Hey,
that's
video
the new
game
thing.
movies. Who owns a toy line that we can make a movie about? I think you're gonna if you don't make good movies, they'll flop, and that'll be more detrimental. So yeah, what was your ranking of the film?
My ranking as a dude, for me personally, I think it's a 7.5.
7.5, okay.
I liked it. I think that it does a lot of things right. Some of the overall story isn't just quite there for me, but for a comedy, that's a very good ranking. And I could easily rewatch it. I'm sure I'm going to rewatch it with the wife as soon as it hits streaming. So what about you?
For me, I think this is a movie, I said it already, it's about plastic dolls, but somehow it found a way to not be very superficial. Is it kind of daft in some points? Yeah. Is it maybe a little heavy-handed in certain parts? Yeah. But I think that Ken is hilarious in this movie. I think there are so many laugh-out-loud moments from so many performances. As far as a comedy goes, I really enjoyed it. I'd give it an 8.5. Okay. I think that there are people that are going to want to rate this a 10 because of like the prisoner of the moment. I wouldn't argue with them. That's up to their subjective opinion. There are even people I've seen that are calling for Margot Robbie to win an Oscar for leading woman.
That's a little far.
I don't agree with that, but I do agree it's a movie, and it's a moment in time, and it is the first part of Barbenheimer.
Part 1.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about Oppenheimer, the latest installment from Christopher Nolan on an $80 million budget, or on a $90 million budget. Opening week, it makes $89 million. Almost makes the budget back in that first week.
Yep.
What were your initial thoughts of Oppenheimer?
I was blown away. The casting, phenomenal. Acting, phenomenal. The camera work is phenomenal. My only regret with it is that we didn't watch it in 70 millimeter IMAX, but there's not one of those near us. So
yeah, I think the closest one's in Dallas.
Yeah.
Frickin' Dallas.
Dallas and San Antonio, I think, are the two in Texas that have them.
I will say this. I, as a viewer, was completely immersed in this movie. And I told you when we walked out, I had this sense of brutal anguish. I felt the anguish of this movie. And Christopher Nolan did what only he can do by pulling on certain levers of filmmaking and he's just a master.
Yep.
He's the master.
It's a master class on directing, writing, casting, letting your cast and crew work. But also, he has such an ability to make a movie conversational after you've seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of his movies kind of leave you with this like ominous feeling of like questioning things. Some of them do have exciting ends where it's joyous, but a lot of them, like Oppenheimer, isn't a happy ending. It's not a happy ending at the end of the movie. You're not getting this like camera roll where there's like pictures of Oppenheimer as an older man, and it's giving you like the little quips about how great his life was after he did this. He's a complicated person, and you have complicated feelings after you watch the movie, and that's what I think he kills it. A lesser director would have been trying to make you like Oppenheimer the whole time, and there's so many moments, me and you talked about it afterwards, where it's like, oh, I kind of agree with him. What is he doing here? Like, he's so frustrating to watch.
No, I think that it's a masterclass, and I don't know if it's my favorite Christopher Nolan movie, but I think as time goes on, this may end up being his like croix de gueule of like, wow, that is the crown jewel of his pantheon or his portfolio, because so much of what is done in this movie, and again, we're not a plot recapping show, but the story is just Oppenheimer's kind of background, him leading the team to create the atom bomb, and then kind of the legacy of his life after that moment.
Yep.
The plot is really simple, and even as you reflect on it, you're like, yeah, that is the plot. Obviously, there's some use of the characters with Strauss and Robert Downey Jr.'s performance. There's so many cameos by like so many actors, so many important characters to actual history. And I think what's incredible to me is that this movie spends so much time talking about the like historical significance and legacy about people from like an intelligence perspective, or great minds that work together are able to do great things. But it also talks about like the very simple things of like greed is dangerous.
Yeah.
Treating other people with love and respect is important, and the like collateral damages of not being kind to humanity, both in the kindest and simplest of moments or the most dire of moments when you talk about like actually dropping an atomic bomb. So how a movie's able to do that and it not feel like, when I watch Schindler's List, like it hurts. That is a movie that like it's so brutal, but it's such a damaging topic. It hurts your heart. This movie, I felt the ambivalence and the complication of all the ethical dilemmas and all the challenges, and I think that was a really masterfully done job by Christopher Nolan.
Well, and Oppenheimer himself understood the magnitude of what he was doing on a level that this bomb would be something that is so destructive that he could only use religious texts to describe how he felt after he did it. I do have a question for you. How did you feel about them not showing the bomb explode over Japan?
So, upon my first watch, I thought to myself, I feel like this is a missed opportunity, because the movie does a great job of building like dramatic irony. We know the test is successful.
Yeah.
We know that the Trinity test is going to work, because we know what happened. This is history. It's fact, which is cool. And Christopher Nolan still makes us on the edge of our seat. We are all captivated for this moment. At first, I thought, why aren't we seeing this? But upon thinking about it, that's not the story. The story is Oppenheimer. And so Oppenheimer, once he made this bomb work, and again, it's worth saying, like, Oppenheimer is credited with this as the father of this, but there are
a large crew,
so many people involved in this. This is not a one-man effort. This is a huge army of support and resources. He was just the guy at the top of the totem pole. But the story for him ends at the Trinity test, because he has proven that it works. And he even says, like, look, we don't get to decide who or when or how they drop this. We were just set to do this task of science. And I think that slightly probably out of respect to those that like did lose family and the lasting imprints that Hiroshima and Nagasaki had from those bombings. I think it's probably a wise thing not to. But the story isn't about what happened with the bomb. It's about what happened to Oppenheimer.
Yeah, his dealing
that
with it.
final hour, which I know a lot of people have complained about being maybe a little bit slow or just changing, where I felt like it was great, because that's where I felt the anguish of seeing Oppenheimer try to like punish himself or other people punish him. I thought that so many people did so good to make a courtroom drama feel like a horror film at times. The suspense was really, really great, and it's all done in a like 8x10 room.
Yeah.
So actors are giving great performances with all their facial expressions. I loved the use of color. I just thought it was like a really, really good movie.
All the supporting actors that pop into the movie, I feel like they steal the screen like when they're there. The guy that's doing the interrogations is like so intense. Casey Affleck, when he pops in there, and you can tell that he's like gonna hurt somebody.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Casey Affleck had a recognizable voice until I heard his voice, and I was like, oh, that's Casey Affleck.
Yeah.
Because you hear him talking, I'm like, that's Casey Affleck. This movie is so much better if you know nothing about it, because the actors just keep showing up, and they're really great. Everybody, like, I can't think
Josh
of anybody.
From Drake and Josh. I mean, but every one of them, even if you recognize them from something else, they just kill it. Even Rami Malek. Rami Malek. Like, everyone just, they pop up, and you're like, holy crap, that's so-and-so. And then they just knock it out of the park, and then it's on to the next guy. And it's like, wow, man.
It was cool seeing, like, Josh Hartnett kill it.
Yeah,
like,
Josh Hartnett. Just, he has, like, so much leading man charisma from, like, the 80s.
Well, it's ironic. I remember the first thing that I really remember him in was Pearl Harbor, set in the exact same time period. And the thing was that he didn't come off as, like, authentic to the time.
No.
He just felt like a bro in
Pearl
the
Harbor.
war. Whereas here I felt like he felt like classy old Hollywood. So part of its redemption, but it was great. I'm curious here, what were your favorite performances? There's so many performances in here. What were your standouts?
Well, I'd be remiss not to mention Cillian.
Yeah.
Now, you talk about somebody that's worthy of the Oscar.
Yeah.
He freaking killed it. Robert Downey Jr., also supporting actor, Oscar worthy. This is the most opposite from Tony Stark. I think we've seen him play like a character since he did Iron Man, where he's usually so like likable and charming, and he just kind of flips that on its head with his portrayal in this movie, and he just destroys it. And then I think if I have to pick another one, I think it's Hartnett. Like, he shocked me at how good he was as the character that he plays. He plays that so perfectly well.
Yeah, I'll address all those. I agree the same. So I thought Josh Hartnett was awesome. I told you, I think it'd be really cool for James Gunn to reach out to Josh Hartnett. He was rumored to be a Batman at some point. I think he'd be a cool older Batman.
He could do it.
Like, he looks the part. He could do it. That would be cool. I'm down for Heartman, Bat Heart. Or
James,
whatever.
come on,
yeah, make it happen.
Listen, I know you're listening to the show.
RDJ, I think, was such a smart casting by Nolan, because he knew how he was writing the film. He knew how he likes to play with time. And so at the beginning of the movie, Strauss, we kind of are buddies with him. We feel like we're experiencing the story through his lens. And as the story goes on, we realize, like, I don't know if I like Oppenheimer because of the performance that Cillian Murphy gives. There is this level of, like, arrogance, but then this glee and this confidence, and we like it. And then we see some of the shadiness of his character. So we're like, oh, well, at least we have Strauss. Like, we can follow him. Me, having not been alive during the time and not being as familiar with the history of it, the twist of him being the person that has kind of done this to orchestrate and tarnish Oppenheimer's legacy really worked. And I think it works even better because Robert Downey Jr. has a charisma and a likability that we want to believe him. He's Iron Man.
Yeah.
He wouldn't do anything like this. So when we are watching that process, it is so like, ooh, icky, like it happened to us. And I think that's masterful acting, but also masterful writing, casting. All those elements are just being orchestrated perfectly. And then I think Cillian Murphy is such a great actor in this specific role because he's always been a good actor. But this requires you to have so many different levels, even though this is really like a gray man.
Yeah.
He's not very colorful with his like language or his emotions, but the facial expressions and the anguish that you see, so much just thinking into space, having a conversation, talking with his wife, talking about philosophy, talking about. I still didn't know if I liked him or disliked him by the end of the movie, and I think that he lost so much weight. He looked like him, and I just think there's just so many positive things I could say about it, to where it made me think. And I think art as a artifact forces you to deal with some sort of emotional turmoil, and I think that Cillian Murphy's performance as Oppenheimer made me think so much more than I thought any other actor could have been if they were playing Oppie.
Yeah, I love how they show his flaws too.
Yep.
Like he gets set up for a bad situation, but it's all due to like character flaw traits that open the door for. He's a womanizer. He kind of is, always involved with things that he's been warned not to be involved with. Not even just from like the communist standpoint, but if he wasn't having an affair on his wife with a known Communist Party member, then he likely wouldn't have as much trouble.
Yep.
And speaking of actors that killed it, Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh both killed their roles in this movie. They're both super believable. They have so much charisma. It was just an awesome movie.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. Let's talk about some of the things you didn't like. When you tend to kind of take a step back, what were some of the parts that didn't work for you, or you kind of left a little bit of meat on the bone?
I think, I don't want to say that the explosion underwhelmed me in any capacity, but I do think there's just so much buildup. I think they shot it awesomely, but maybe it just was like a little bit underwhelming. And I'm cool. I could sit in a Christopher Nolan movie for 10 hours, but 3 hours is a long movie, especially for a very dialogue-driven movie. But I mean, I was cool with it.
Yeah,
I just understand.
I loved the way that they were able to visualize the kind of premeditate us for the explosion with the way that he was thinking about neurons and talking about music, and you don't need to be able to play it. Just can you hear it? Can you hear the music? All right, and that visual kind of led us all the way across to where the point where we actually saw the explosion. I thought that was great. I thought that helped as a device to tell the story really well. And I think for me, something that I thought didn't, hit as well is sometimes I felt like the story, especially in that first hour, was moving so quickly, of trying to give us so much exposition and so many characters that I kind of lost sight. I was like, what am I supposed to be catching something? Am I going to miss something? And I think part of that is to show that this is a monumental effort. It's not Oppenheimer's work. This is everybody's work. This is a real team of people that did this. But it did at times make me think, am I missing something? Who's someone this is an actor that I should know, so they're playing somebody famous. I don't know the name. Did I miss something?
Yeah, the historical
something like the
figures.
historical significance felt a little bit too much. But all in all, I think it's a really interesting place to be. As you kind of think about the movie, does this remind you about any other movies that you've seen recently or kind of have some influences about?
It really, I know it's not the same, but it really reminded me of JFK.
Yep.
In a way, another movie that's so much suspense, but there's not a ton of action scenes, but it still feels that tension and building. I know from an interview I saw that Christopher Nolan had Cillian and Robert Downey Jr. watch Amadeus.
Yep.
to get ready because that rivalry is really set up. And there's tons of, any film that focuses on two rivals. Chariots of Fire was another one you had them watch. That rivalry is so key, and the way that they're able to feed off of each other, even on screen, is phenomenal.
See, so this is a little bit of an abstract movie that I thought of. And then the more I thought of it, I was like, yeah, that actually feels a lot like it. This reminded me a lot of The Social Network.
Oh, yeah.
Like a court case. We're kind of learning a little bit of this through
like
the interrogation and bouncing forth through time. But then also like some insane dialogue-driven conflict where we get to see actors acting, old school Hollywood acting. It's not a fight. It's not a kaiju monster.
No.
CGI battle with a bunch of nameless aliens. This is mano a mano, actor and actor, just acting their butts off. And I think of like the Social Network kind of talks about like a point in time where even now we can look back and think of like, well, that was a time that changed the world. Like social media did have an effect on the world. Obviously not the same that the atomic bomb did, but there is a timelessness to that nature of like this is a historical film, and well, that's a bit more colorful than it is factual. This feels like I'm watching some of the facts, and obviously all art and all movies are a bit creative with their license about the truth.
You gotta make it interesting enough to watch.
It's really compelling. And I think that it would be remiss if we didn't talk about like Matt Damon. We just talked about earlier with my reference to Margot Robbie. He plays Groves in such like a fun role, typical American. We're gonna fight the Nazis and we're gonna win.
Nazis.
We're gonna do what we can and we're gonna kick Hitler in the balls. He kind of takes on this like hidden protagonist role, where like Oppenheimer is like supporting him. Then RDJ and Strauss like. They're the antagonists. They're the bad guy. It's like, you did all this. You're so bad. Whereas, like, Cillian as Oppenheimer, the named person in the movie, he is more of just this guy. He is an ambivalent character that is just a plot driver. And the way that he's written and performed is just perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I just can't overstate when he's giving that speech to the room, and he's seeing like their faces melting. He's dealing with some major demons. Like he looks like to pass out.
Yeah.
He looks like he's seen a ghost, and I felt that anguish. I felt like I was there, and for me, I think that's just a masterful class by Cillian, by Christopher Nolan, everyone around. I thought did a really good job.
I think another movie that I just kind of thought about when we were talking is it's like The Prestige. You've got this rivalry between these two powerful, smart men, but for whatever reason, misunderstanding, anything that happened, we just kind of let this little thing turn into a big rivalry that kind of railroads two guys' career over almost nothing. And you get that sense of like, man, if we could have just held it together a little bit tighter, but what could we have accomplished? For Oppenheimer, it's a sad realization that they used him when he was useful, but then as soon as his value was gone, as soon as they got what they wanted out of him, and he started to ruffle some feathers, it's like, all right, we'll just take away your clearance, like you're gone.
I think an interesting discussion. I'd be interested if you're listening. Comment below. But with us and with the audience is like, what does this movie mean? Like there are so many themes, both from like segments of the movie, but then also like this movie as an artifact of rhetorical criticism. What does it mean in its entirety? Of like, a man is burdened by his own greatness is a theme that stood out to me. That great people accomplish great things. I think that there is this topic of legacy, which we talked about with Barbie. Yeah. Barbie is exploring her own legacy and what that means, and I think that. You know, Albert Einstein has this great moment at the very end of the film with Oppie explaining, like, you've been used. They'll give you your salmon. They'll give you your award. But that's for them. It's not for you. And we see throughout the movie, and it's jumping through time, different parts of Oppenheimer having to deal with, like, what he has responsible for, what level of accountability he has, what his legacy will be, and that's a scary thing. It's not the legacy of, Barbie Land. It's one of tremendous devastation and what other things could open the door of. So I'm curious, like, were there themes that, now that you've watched the movie and had some more time to think about it, that stood out to you?
Well, I think the relationships, how he treated people, it doesn't matter how great you are. Even his was it his brother or his friend that warns him, like, you're going to need these people later. Like, you can't just can't just, like, railroad your way through all these people just because you're smart, just because you have a talent for something. That resonates with life in so many ways. The way that you treat people is so important. I work in healthcare. I see it all the time. We can have a brilliant doctor, but if they have terrible bedside manner, it doesn't matter. People don't trust them to take care of them. So he really had to navigate those relationships, but he clearly had issues with it. When he's getting people to help testify for him at the end of the movie, there's people that don't want to testify because they find out that he had an affair with a friend of theirs wife, or he did this or that. And so those relationships are important throughout your life. How you treat people is very, very important, and it leaves a lasting impression. It doesn't matter how good you are at outside things, how smart you are. You can make the atomic bomb, you can be the father of the atomic bomb, and you can still treat people terribly and they will turn on you.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting to talk about, like, a flawed, perfect man. We see that there is a flawed man. He's much more gritty than we were thinking. There's lots of historical figures that were like, oh yeah, they were a womanizer. They weren't this, they were that. We talked about
they beat their wives.
JFK, MLK, Abraham Lincoln. These really important figures to civil rights, to history, to the United States of America, because this is very much a U.S. history, an American story. I think it's smart to tell a movie about Oppenheimer because the philosophy there, the rhetorical analysis is much better suited to a character like Oppenheimer than it is to just tarnish the reputation of other men that did great things but were also complicated individuals. But this movie felt really right for me. I'm curious, in, like, the portfolio of Christopher Nolan films, where does this fall for you? I mean, he's got some bangers.
Oh yeah.
Where does this fall as it sits right now?
It's top 5 for sure. I think it's probably in my favorite order, probably sitting at number 4. I'd have to go Dark Knight, Interstellar, Inception, Oppenheimer.
So I think I'm right along with you. I am kind of sitting there of, like, maybe 3. I think it's at 3 for me right now, and I could very see it climbing over time into, like, 2, maybe even 1. I think that this will end up being his, like, wow, it worked. Because all the Christopher Nolan things that he wants to do, jumping through time, non-conventional storytelling, the visual elements, the practical elements, he does it better than anybody else.
Yep.
And this one is the one where it feels like everything works for most audiences. So I was really impressed with that. A question for you. So you just mentioned The Dark Knight. I was thinking about this, like, and Christopher Nolan often makes movies that are about, like, where his head is thinking. And the anguish you feel is palpable. You feel the anguish in this movie. Like, Oppenheimer is telling you himself, I regret doing this. Keep in mind, Nolan is the filmmaker, and we've recently been talking a lot about this, like, comic book movie fatigue, and I think this could be maybe like an MCU reference. It's not a true Minivan Movie Club episode without an MCU reference or comic book movie reference. Similar to, like, Oppenheimer creating the atomic bomb. Do you think that this movie at all talks about, like, Nolan regretting making, like, an amazing Batman movie? Because, like, he birthed this genre of, like, really gritty filmmaking, but perhaps that, like, spark of inspiration gave way to this, like, monster of comic book movies and this genre of movie making that is kind of, like, haphazardly done with a bunch of CGI and AI writers. Do you think that there's any, like, hint there maybe?
No. But
I think there is. I do. I really do.
He is Oppenheimer. I mean, he makes movies about things that he fears. I guess that there could be. I haven't heard him say anything like that, but I know that there is. He's said that he's never making another superhero movie. I think that the level of criticism
I think that there is
receive,
something there.
and we know with things like Inception that he likes to make like commentaries on things like that's the idea of a film being put together with Inception. So could be.
I think there's something there. Comment below with what you think this movie means. I'd be really interested here. So tell me, let me know, Nick. What did you rank this movie?
I rank this movie a 9.5.
Okay.
Minivans.
Okay.
What about you?
Same 9.5 minivans. I think this is probably the best composition movie that we've seen all year.
Yep.
I think that Air was probably that other movie that we've seen so far this year that was really well done all around. This movie was outclassed that movie in like every category. Fantastic movie. I wouldn't be shocked by the end of the year we're talking about this in a lot of Oscar categories. Again, the awards don't define the movie, but this is a great movie for me. I only regret, like you said, is that I didn't get to see it in the 70 millimeter IMAX film that it was shot in, because everything about it was perfect to me. Yeah.
Couldn't say it better myself.
Yeah. So that concludes our episode about Barbenheimer. Any other closing thoughts before we go down the road?
No, I think it's important, as we'll note in our next episode, directors, practical effects matter. We want to see you do the real stuff. It worked for Barbenheimer. It works for Mission Impossible. Please.
He's Nick. I'm Brett. We'll see you down the road. Cheers.
Peace.